Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and I'm back today with another video. Today I'm going to be doing my weekly wrap-up for the Reading Rush week, which was officially July 20th through 26th. However, I started the Reading Rush on July 19th because I took the GRE this past Friday on the 24th, and I figured with the GRE I would probably lose about 24 hours of reading time, so I kind of wanted to give myself a little extra cushion at the beginning of the week. And over the course of the week I did manage to finish 6 books, which totaled to about 1,500 pages, which is crazy to me that I managed to read that much, especially that I read about 1,400 pages last week. So I'm going to kind of talk through these 6 books in more depth than I did in my vlog, which if you haven't seen my vlog, I will put a link up in the description box above. These 2 videos should be hopefully going up right around the same time, so if you are more interested in kind of the vlog style casual content, definitely check that one out. And then this one's going to be more of, as you can see, a like sit down review style, talking about the 6 books that I managed to finish. So let's just get into it. So the first one that I managed to finish this week was for the prompt of read a book that inspired a movie you've already seen, and for that I read Enchanted by Gail, Carson, Levine. This is a children's classic published in the late 90s. I think it was 97 when this was published. 97, which was the year I was born, so that's fun. And this follows our young main character named Ella, who is a girl who's been given the gift, or really curse, of obedience by a fairy godmother of sorts at the beginning of the novel when she is an infant. Which basically means, obviously, that she has to obey every command that is given to her, whether she wants to do it or not. And so this one kind of after that then follows this Cinderella retelling type story wherein her mother dies, unfortunately, very tragically, and so her father remarries someone who's a bit of an evil stepmother of sorts, and she has 2 evil stepsisters, one of whom realizes Ella's gift slash curse and kind of uses it to her advantage. So after her stepsister Hattie realizes that Ella has this gift slash curse of obedience, Ella then goes on an adventure to find her fairy godmother that gave her this gift to remove the obedience from her life and be able to kind of make choices with her own free will. So this one, as I said, I've seen the movie of this one, which stars Anne Hathaway and Hugh Dancy. It came out in like 2004 or something, and I absolutely love it. It is one of my favorite like childhood movies. I've seen it so many times, and I think because I've seen it so many times, the book did not compare to the movie and the wonders of the movie. I think the ways that the movie takes the plot of this otherwise pretty sparse and pretty run-of-the-mill Cinderella retelling into a much more vibrant and complex story. In both stories there is a love interest whose name is Charmant, or Char, Prince Charming, who is interested in Ella and who Ella develops a friendship that later becomes kind of a romantic relationship with. So in the book, the 2 of them write letters back and forth to one another, and they kind of really develop this strong friendship. However, in the movie, it's a lot more complex because Prince Char has this uncle who has pretty evil intentions that obviously grow more evil as the movie progresses, that I think complicate the narrative a lot around Char and his ideas of what he is able to choose and kind of how he wants to choose how the kingdom is run. And so there's this really interesting commentary in terms of what choices do we as people have to do good in others' lives or to potentially do bad in others' lives that I think is just really lacking from the book. And so when I was watching the movie again, which as you'll see in my vlog, I did watch the movie with my family, I think the movie just really takes so much of this idea of like how would someone who is forced to be obedient all the time really actually respond to other people, and how would she grow from that into a more kind person because she understands what having to do something that you don't want to do or don't feel comfortable doing, like having to do that thing, how that changes you and how that affects you. So I still love the movie. I think the movie's fantastic, but unfortunately the book just like didn't really do that much for me, especially the last third, as I said, really became this run-of-the-mill Cinderella retelling that did not have that much kind of creativity or nuance with the Cinderella story, which obviously I'm very familiar with. I think most people in the Western world like are familiar with the story of Cinderella. So yeah, overall I gave this one a 3-star. I would recommend watching the movie and probably would skip on the book, to be perfectly honest. But I do know that a lot of people really love the book, and I can understand too, if you read the book prior to seeing the movie, you definitely would probably be upset with the movie because it does dramatically change the story. But in my mind, it dramatically changes the story for the better. So yeah, that was Enchanted. Not a huge fan of Ella, sorry. So the next book that I have to talk about is On Earth for Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. This is Vuong's debut prose novel. He's written a collection of poetry that is called Night Sky with Exit Wounds, but this is his first novel. And this one is a fairly autobiographical novel that follows a young character whose family calls him Little Dog. As he is growing up in Hartford, he was born in Vietnam, as was Ocean Vuong, but his family left Vietnam as refugees, were in a refugee camp in the Philippines, and eventually made their way to the United States. And Vuong, as well as Little Dog in the novel, grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, in a working class neighborhood. And in this novel, we explore Vuong's childhood and young adulthood, especially his developing relationship with a young man that he works with at a tobacco farm outside of Hartford. It explores a lot of kind of themes of growing up and family, as well, and like intergenerational trauma, etc. And this one, I actually can't talk about any of my thoughts on this because I read it for the BookTube Prize, which I mentioned several times in the vlog, so sorry if you're hearing that for the 1 millionth time. But that video about my thoughts about all of my BookTube Prize reading will be coming out on the 31st, so this Friday. So stay tuned for my thoughts on this one, but I did finish it this week. Then the next book that I finished this week was Big Friendship, How We Keep Each Other Close by Aminatou So and Friedman, and I absolutely love this one. So this follows Aminatou and Anne, who are two friends that met in their early 20s in DC while both living there and working kind of politics, media, tech type jobs, and basically just kind of trying to find friends, etc. And so we then kind of follow their friendship over the course of the past 10 years that they've been friends. They currently now host the Call Your Girlfriend podcast, which plays a large role in this narrative. So this book is a quasi-memoir of these two women and how they became such close friends. They actually call their friendship a big friendship, which is kind of even beyond a best friendship, in that they are at such a level of intimacy that it's kind of beyond the terminology of a big friend. And so it's a quasi-memoir of kind of discussing the love and affection and intimacy that they developed in their early years of their platonic friendship, all the way through some kind of trials and tribulations that helped test their friendship and ultimately help them grow in their friendship. But alongside all of that wonderful kind of memoir goodness, there is this fantastic examination through different social sciences like psychology, history, and sociology in terms of what platonic friendships mean, both historically throughout kind of Western culture, as well as like today, both socially, like how are friends impacting one another in a social environment, but also how psychologically do friendships impact our lives and make us happier and kind of more fulfilled in our lives. So I absolutely love this book. Friends are obviously something that are hugely important to me, and I also, all of my very closest friends live very far away from me. So I think reading a book talking about two people that are best friends that have spent more of their friendship now doing a long distance friendship than they had when they were in person, I think was especially pertinent and really hit me very closely, because I do really treasure those long distance friendships, and reading this book about these two women who persevered through the challenges of a long distance friendship, I think was really, really special. So yeah, I absolutely love this one. I actually tabbed it up quite a bit, as you can see, and I actually am planning on sending this one to one of my best friends. We actually call ourselves LLPs, lifelong partners, because we're just like, can't imagine living the rest of our lives without being best friends. And so I'm planning on sending this to her with my tabs, because she wanted to read my like tabbed up version and see the things that I found to be really special. So I'm really excited to send that to her and get to talk about it with her. But yeah, would highly recommend this if friendships are something that are really important to you, or you have especially like lost a friend that was really close to you. I think this book talks a lot about the, sadness and grief that comes with losing a friendship that is really so valuable. So I would highly recommend this. Give it 5 stars. It's great. It's a phenomenal little book, and it's very short. It's very readable. Even if you're not like a big nonfiction reader, I think you would get a lot out of this. And I'm not usually a huge memoir reader either, and I found their story to just be so fun because it's really about their friendship and not necessarily about the rest of their lives, which I know is a critique that some people have had, but I found it to be kind of more engaging, that it was really focused on their experiences as friends, how that shaped their friendship. So yeah, loved Big Friendship. Probably the best book that I read this week, but there were a lot of other really good ones. So yeah, highly recommend this. So my reading week actually was pretty skewed towards Saturday and Sunday, which I think happens a lot in week-long readathons, but I was not working, so I'm not really sure why I was not able to read as much during the week. I mean, I was preparing for the GRE and then I was done with it, but you know, I still had the same amount of time really, but the last 3 books that I finished for the reading rush, I actually all finished yesterday on Sunday, so I will go over those 3 now. So the first one I finished was Hood Feminism Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot by Mikki Kendall, and this one is basically an introduction to intersectionality and Black feminist theory in talking about how different social issues that we might not think of as inherently feminist, such as hunger and housing and general healthcare as opposed to just like abortion rights, don't necessarily impact upper middle class white women or women in the corporate world as much as a lot of kind of traditional feminist issues do, but how these other issues also are set up to impact women more negatively than they might impact other groups, particularly women of color, and in this case particularly Black women. So this one I found to be super engaging. I also tapped it up quite a bit, and I would highly recommend this for anyone who considers themselves a feminist or who is interested and engages with social issues, as I think this provides a lot of important context for how these issues are inherently feminist and need to be things that are included in kind of feminist ideology. However, I didn't give this one a rating. I did have some critiques, personal critiques, and I think just general narrative style preferences that I don't want to get into too much depth because I don't want them to take away from the kind of content and argument of the book. So this kind of reads a bit more than like a manifesto as opposed to a research-based nonfiction book, which I went into it assuming it would be a bit more research-based than it actually turned out to be. The note section at the back is relatively small. I think I talked about that a bit in my vlog. But yeah, so like a 15-page chapter will only have a note section that's about that big, which is just kind of really a personal preference thing and a personal critique. You know, this is not going to be a new favorite nonfiction book, unfortunately, just because of the narrative style and some of the ways that claims were written, and then the evidence kind of supporting that claim often was not as fleshed out as I really personally would like it to be. So yeah, that was this one. I'm happy to talk about it kind of more in the comments, but I'm going to kind of keep it at that for now. So that is that one. Then the next book that I finished was my buddy read with Lindsay, which was A Burning by Megha Majumdar, and Lindsay and I both loved this book. So this is a debut novel that came out this year. Majumdar is currently, I believe, an editor. Yes, she works as an editor for Catapult, and she was born in Kolkata, India, and came to the United States for college and graduate work. And I think her experience both living in India but then also her graduate work in social anthropology really helped to create a fantastic book. So A Burning follows 3 characters all living in and around a slum in Kolkata who become kind of more intertwined over the course of an event that happens at the beginning of the novel, wherein a train nearby to the slum catches fire and hundreds of people die. And after this train catches fire and hundreds of people die, one of our main characters, Jivan, makes a statement on Facebook that basically says, is our government a terrorist for allowing this to happen and for not having the police stop this train from burning and having all these people killed. And unfortunately, because of some of the kind of political situation in the area that she's living in, Jivan ends up getting put in jail as a potential suspect for this train bombing. So the novel then follows Jivan as she attempts to kind of clear her name and prove her innocence in not being related to this train bombing. In addition to Jivan's story, we also follow 2 other characters. So the first is Lovely, who is a Hijra, and I will actually put a link that Lindsay found that she shared with me to a YouTube video that talks about Hijra women in India, which is actually quite a large group of people. They have now officially been recognized by the Indian government as a 3rd gender, but I would highly recommend checking out that video to kind of learn more about Hijra culture. So Lovely was learning English from Jivan, so they have this preliminary connection. And then the 3rd character that we follow is P.T. Sir, who is the former teacher of Jivan. He teaches PE at a girls' school in the area, and he gets involved also in Jivan's case in a variety of different ways. And I think what struck Lindsay and I both about this book the most is how well Majumdar explores the themes that she is focusing her attention on in this book. So this book has a lot of discussion about nationalism and anti-nationalism and kind of the different ways that nationalism can be put forth by the government and by individuals of a political party, as well as corruption within the political world, as well as corruption, you know, in other industries. But I think most importantly, this novel is a discussion on power and how we obtain power, how we lose power, and the ways in which power kind of manifests in our relationships with one another, which I thought was just so well done. This novel almost reads like a literary thriller because there's a lot of twists and turns that happen in under 300 pages, but I think the way that power gets explored and power changes over the course of this book is just so brilliantly done. And as Lindsay said, I mean, the novel really is almost burning with the tension and with the power manifestations that are happening within the novel that, yeah, we were both just on a wild ride. It's also written in a way that's really engaging. The sentences and the chapters are really short. I will kind of just show, like, here's one little chapter. It's like 3 pages. And the sentences are also fairly short, but they're very intentional. So I think the intentionality of the words definitely helped to create this really strong sense of place, as well as drawing some really well fully fleshed out characters. So yeah, I would highly recommend this one. I gave it 4.5 stars, would definitely recommend, and it's a very quick read. As I said, it's under 300 pages and it moves very quickly. So yeah, really would recommend this one, and this one fulfilled the prompt of a book that takes place on a continent that you do not live on. Then the last book that I ended up finishing during the reading rush was Sleepovers by Ashleigh, Bryant, Phillips. This is a debut short story collection out from Hub City Press. I was super excited about these stories as I really like to support Hub City Press and also thought they were really interesting. I've talked about the short story collection several times on my channel, but in case you are unfamiliar, it is a short story collection that primarily focuses its attention on the rural South, specifically rural North Carolina. So the last book that I ended up finishing is one that I've talked about several times on my channel, which is Sleepovers by Ashleigh, Bryant, Phillips. This is a debut short story collection published by Hub City Press, and another one that I really, really enjoyed. So I've talked about this, as I said, several times, so I will put a link to my most recent time, which I believe was my mid-year freakout tag. But this is a collection of short stories that primarily focuses its attention on the rural South, particularly rural North Carolina, and examines different characters that live in intense intergenerational poverty in the rural South. So I absolutely love these stories. I think they really fit well into the kind of female Southern Gothic canon of Carson McCullers and Flannery O'Connor, in that they do have this kind of haunting, tension-filled sense to them. Most of the stories are really quite short. There's some that are only like a page or two. And this collection, despite being less than 200 pages, I think has over 20 stories in it. So it has quite a lot of variety and kind of mix of the stories, but they do all capture this kind of sense of eeriness and dread, as well as kind of often feelings of hopelessness, but also alongside that feelings of hope and happiness and kind of finding joy within like smaller moments in life. So yeah, I really enjoyed these stories quite a lot. I think if you are a fan of Southern Gothic literature, you would also enjoy these stories quite a lot. For me, there weren't even that many stories that didn't land very well with me. There were a couple that I didn't absolutely love, but for the most part, these stories were all really strong. I did have a couple standout favorites, which the absolute favorite of mine in this collection was Snowball Jr., but I also liked the titular Sleepovers, as well as Return to Coondog Castle, a story called Earth to Amy, and then the last 3 stories of the collection, which were The Virgin, The Truth About Miss Katie, and The Chopping Block. So yeah, if you like rural literature or Southern Gothic literature, I would highly recommend checking this out, and I am super excited to see what Bryant Phillips does next, as I think she definitely has a lot of talent, and I would love to see her talent grow in the future. So yeah, that was Sleepovers. Would highly recommend this one as well, and also gave it 4.5 stars. So the final prompt that I didn't end up getting to was the book that started with the word "the," which feels kind of silly. That feels like a weird prompt to not have completed, but I didn't get to it. So I am currently reading 2 books that would have fulfilled that prompt that I will hopefully be finishing by the time the month is over. So those were The New Wilderness by Diane Cook. This one I'm about a quarter of the way through. This was given to me as an early copy from NetGalley and HarperCollins. I believe it's the Harper imprint of HarperCollins. So thank you so much to the publisher and NetGalley for providing me with this copy. And I'm really enjoying this one so far. It is a dystopian climate fiction book about a group of people that are called the Community, that are involved in a multi-year research study in order to understand if people can live in this new wilderness state. So in this world, everyone, because of climate change, I believe, is now living in this urbanized place called the city. And this group of people has elected to journey and live in the wilderness for several years to see if they are, like, humans are still compatible with, like, kind of living off the land, etc. So it has some really interesting themes, particularly surrounding, like, motherhood and kind of children growing up and the transitional kind of stages of motherhood, which is really interesting. And yeah, so I am definitely enjoying this one and will keep you updated as I read it. And then the other one that was hopefully going to fulfill this prompt was The Lager Queen of Minnesota by J. Ryan Straddle. This one is a contemporary fiction novel about two sisters who both grew up on a farm in southern Minnesota, and then something happens where the farm gets sold, and I believe only one of the sisters is involved in getting money for the farm, so the other sister is kind of struggling throughout the rest of her life, and we kind of follow both sisters, one of whom in the more present day, as well as the younger sister, Helen, kind of in the past. So we're up to kind of the 1960s, I think, with Helen, and we're in a present day with Edith and her family. So this one's really interesting. I'm reading this one because my alma mater is putting on, like, a little event with this author, virtual event, obviously, that I want to go to, and so I'm hoping to finish this one by the 2nd of August when that event is happening. I did also last night start another book, which is Sharks in the Time of Saviors by Kavai Strauch Washburn. However, I literally just started this one last night, so I don't really have any thoughts about it. But it is a kind of magical realism literary fiction novel written by Washburn, who is a native Hawaiian, about a poor family in Hawaii, one of the children has some kind of magical abilities. I'm not quite sure what else is happening really, but I'm excited to keep reading. So that is everything that I read during the week of the reading rush, as well as am currently reading. Please let me know down in the comment section below if any of these books sound interesting to you, or you now want to read them based on my reviews. And I think that's everything. If you're new to my channel, you found me through the reading rush or through something else, hi, my name is Jenny. Please give me a subscribe and stick around if you would like. And that is everything. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you next time.